The Oracle Network.
Our city of the week was Texas again.
Same place in Texas?
I think it was Dallas. It's Dallas, Texas. Hey.
Ass.
Dallas.
Hello.
Hey guys, welcome. I'm Abby,
And I'm Shauna.
and this is Anxious,
And Afraid.
the podcast,
Where we talking to mics about scary things.
and anxious things and things that make you feel uncomfortable.
Stories you shouldn't want to hear, but you do.
We trauma bond together, and welcome if it's your first time, and welcome back if it's not.
Heyo. Heyo for listening.
We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, so Abby.
Mm-hmm.
What's up? What's going on with you, girl? What made you anxious or afraid this week?
Oh, girl, for the most part, I've just been staying put. There's not been a lot happening to
That's
me.
true. We can't do nothing still.
Yeah, my life has been pretty tame the last couple weeks. All I can complain about is I have like restless legs every once in a while,
Not fun.
like in the middle of the night, like when I'm trying to sleep.
Chad has really bad restless legs.
Does he have any tips, or does you just suffer through it? I can't find anything that really like alleviates it.
Right. No, he has a hard time with it. I mean, he sometimes tries to put like icy hot on his legs, but then he like just gives up and he elevates his legs on the couch. Like he's like, I'm too restless. I'm going to elevate my legs on the couch. And
Elevate them. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's like they didn't used to have this that bad, but now it's getting worse.
that sucks.
Yeah, it's really hard to sleep when you have restless legs. I just want to be like running in place.
Right. It seems like such a silly, weird thing, but like it's very common. It's like a thing that's really not fun.
Oh, and it's like it's so distracting. Like you can't focus on anything else. You're like, I just want to stretch. But anyway,
I'm supposed to get that, I think maybe later in pregnancy, but so far.
that's right. More common in pregnancy.
Yeah, so far so good for me. I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah. And the cast makes sleeping hard too. So I'm just like, sleep is not great. But then again, I'm not like working, so I guess it's fine.
Yeah, true that. But you're also like a tummy sleeper, so like,
Yeah,
you're probably all sorts of uncomfortable.
I love sleeping on my tummy, but I can't right now. It's fine. What about you? Anything make you anxious or afraid?
Well, I mean, I didn't elaborate in the last opening of the episode, but like I'm officially have entered that phase. I'm at the end. I'm at the very end of my second trimester. Mm-hmm. I have
Which
like
is insane.
2 weeks left, 2 full weeks, and then I'm in my third, and that's not okay.
Not okay
I'm
with me.
not okay with this at all.
Tell her
To stop. Tell her to just pause for a second.
If I could turn back time. I'm going to start singing it to her.
Let's do it now.
Little baby, stop growing.
Yeah, so
We're not
that's-
ready for you.
It's really freaky, but it's also the phase where I'm not comfortable anymore.
Right.
It's just the beginning of that phase where it just gets worse. Mm-hmm. So I'm experiencing lower back issues kind of every day. It doesn't help that I sit in an office chair all day too.
Right.
But I use the heating pad a lot at night for it. I'm trying to take more baths to help out, but that's becoming more of an issue, and I can't breathe as before, just because she's popping out, and I can't like lift my legs like I used to, or like
Oh yeah, you're like Winnie the Pooh status. Like you got a belly on you.
So it just like I feel like I'm suffocating the both of us now if I sit in weird ways or lean forward or stuff.
Yeah, she said
that.
didn't you say she kicks you if you sit a certain way? She's like, Ma.
Yeah, there was one time where like we were eating off of like a low setting coffee table at Chad's mom's house, and I had to bend really far forward to make sure I didn't, my mouth above the plate.
Right.
And she kicked me every time I bent forward, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm hungry.
She's like, you're squishing me.
But yeah, those are my new fun things.
That's
starting to wobble, make noise every time I get up from somewhere.
That's going to be a few more months of
That. Yeah,
Yikes.
stairs are harder. I tried to say, I'm the person who like likes to clean. Like I have to have like a day where I'm like, okay, for the first half of the day or whatever, I'm going to get stuff done, dishes,
same.
garbage, whatever. And I was doing that the other day and wanted to just get stuff done. And I need to learn how to ask for help now.
Yeah, you got it, girl.
I know. I did ask for my mom to help me with finishing the wallpaper, but I did too much cleaning beforehand and I went up down the stairs too many times. Like my legs got sore, and now I'm extra wobbly. So like now I'm like, oh girl, you gotta like dial back and be careful.
Well, yeah, because you're also lifting more weight.
Yeah, my center of gravity is completely off.
Yeah, you're using like different muscles probably.
Yeah, and like that makes sense with the lower back pain because like you're just naturally your back is arching more and like trying to compensate for the belly and oh yeah, and like getting up too fast. Like I'm starting to get dizzy spells if I do or look up from the ground. Like I can't do that.
Uh-oh.
So I gotta be careful now. And it's like weird and I don't like
I
it.
put you in a bubble and like anti-gravity chamber and you just float around.
Yeah, so that's just the beginning of the end. But yeah,
It's a great way to look at it.
right. 26 weeks today as we're recording. As you
What's
listen.
the size supposed to be?
What did I see? It was like some squash I never heard of.
Some type of squash.
Some silly fruit, or I think I saw the size of Aladdin's, like the genie bottle in Aladdin. But I'm like, how does anyone
no reference for that?
Yeah, how does anyone know the size of that?
And I hope your baby's not shaped like a genie bottle. Be all kinds of weird angles.
Oh, one of them said the length of a scallion, but I'm like, that doesn't help. Obviously, it's not whatever. Acorn squash is what this app says.
Acorn squash. Okay.
Or nostalgic 80s, 90s Walkman, if you remember those.
Oh, okay.
Bright yellow.
Yeah, the yellow ones.
Yep.
All right. Cool.
None of the sizes make sense, but it's fun.
It is fun. Can't wait for those apps.
Yep.
Okay. What else we got? Oh, we saw an owl the other day, you guys. It was really weird.
We were in the middle of an owl, as we said.
I was laughing really hard because Shauna was driving because I can't drive my ass around right now, and she was dropping me off. And it was nighttime. It was like what 9 o'clock. There's just an owl
In the middle of the road.
chilling on our and it's like a residential road.
We thought it was a cat at first. We're
Yeah.
like, oh, kitty.
Yeah.
And then it turned and it was an owl.
Yeah, its head did that quick swivel, and we're like,
Yeah.
oh.
The full like 180 swiv. And I was like, wow, that's in the wild.
Yeah, Shauna had never seen an owl in the wild before, so that was a first for her.
It was pretty.
Very exciting.
It's cool.
Some people said it looked like the owl from Harry Potter. I agree. It was very Hedwig-like.
Cute.
And then there was, all the meanings on the internet. So like we might die soon, or
yeah.
some big change may be coming.
Yeah, it could be the meaning of really, really bad things or really good things. So,
It's just like
bullshit.
any internet search.
Yeah. It's whatever you want it to be.
That was fun. We posted that on our stuff.
Yeah,
You can go look at that.
Check out the little video of the owl and us freaking out over it. Do you want to mention the quick article or whatever?
Oh
we were
yeah.
in?
So our good friends over at That's So Fucked Up podcast.
Nice.
We'll play their promo if we haven't already again. But they have like an amazing intro song. I always compliment them on. But they put together this really great like listicle of podcasts you need to be listening to that you're not listening to yet, and we were on it.
We were featured on it.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
And it was like it showed up on medium.com, which was really cool.
I look at that website a lot.
I know, it's like I've used them as a reference.
I'm pretty sure I reference them a lot.
Yeah. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that was really exciting. That was fun. That's really cool.
Yeah, so thanks to those guys. Go
Thank
give their
you.
show a listen as well.
For sure.
Really funny.
So that's what's up with us.
Yep. So should we do it?
I think everyone has been dying to hear your story.
I feel like I've gotten a pretty good response from that Stargate episode. Like people
are into it.
Into it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, good, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone else is also weirdly intrigued by this.
Anything shady government stuff, I think, is,
I know, especially if you're like living in America and you're like, this happened here.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay, so I guess my intro is going to be a little different because you already kind of know my topic from my last episode on Project Stargate, which if you haven't listened to that one, I would highly recommend that you do before you listen to this one, because that's where you're going to get like all the background info on the project. That's
sure.
like your groundwork.
Yeah, it's a great episode.
Thank you. So as promised today, word vomit. So as promised, today's episode will be about a man named David Morehouse. He was a decorated soldier in the U.S. military, and he would suffer a freak accident and end up and a top secret program that essentially made him a psychic spy.
What?
How cool is that?
A psychic spy.
The coolest kind of spy.
Ooh.
So as I said last time, you're going to want to keep an open mind for this one.
We're here for the weird shit.
Maybe like keep it even open more than last time.
Like you can still be like hella skeptical. We encourage that, but just like listen and be chill about it.
Just like creak that brain open and just like soak some of this up. But like you said, also put on your doubt filter.
Yes.
Just as a general rule, you shouldn't believe everything you hear, and certainly not everything I tell you, because we talk about some weird shit that some of it can't be verified. So
for sure.
So yeah, just as a general rule, always put on your little doubt filter. I can't say that I believed 100% of this story. No shade to David. But I mean, like, even if like 10% of the story is correct, it's just mind-blowingly weird. Just like the last episode where you're like, even if a sliver of this is real, it is just so weird. All right, so we're in for another wild ride.
Fun.
Buckle up. Yep, buckle up. I did read a book for this one. As I said last time, it was a book written by David Morehouse. So you're getting the story directly from the source.
From him, okay.
The book is called Psychic Warrior. And I'll just keep my title opinions to myself now. Thank you very much.
I think you've made a hint of how you feel about it.
I learned my lesson. I'm honestly a little terrified he's going to like hear this and just haunt me with his psychic abilities.
Because we actually had an author.
Yeah, we've had like an author actually listen to it. I'm like, oh no, like it's a possibility. He's done podcast interviews recently.
That's so funny.
So David, if you're listening, please don't haunt me or come after me. And I hope you like this story because it's about your life.
We come from love no matter what.
Yeah, I think this is all very fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so the book itself, it was, very strange material. Probably one of the wildest books I've ever read. But it reads like a novel. So it is an easy read if you're interested in checking it out.
It's good.
Okay, so do you have your crystals clutched tightly in your little hand?
I have my anxiety beanbag ball.
Okay, we'll just imagine you have a crystal because that's what I told you to do last time.
Oh, I mean, okay, I have one right here.
Okay, good.
Where's that?
She always has one within reach.
I leave one on the table for handy services.
For emergencies. All right. Okay, so as always, let's start from the beginning. David Morehouse came from a military family, and from a very young age, he assumed he would be a soldier when he grew up too. His dad was in the army, and although he didn't see him very often, he idolized and respected him, as young boys often do. As he grew into his teens, though, David became a little more rebellious, as he was a teen during the 1970s. So you can imagine he he grew out his hair to drive his dad crazy, and probably rocked some cute bell bottoms or something.
Very cute bell bottoms.
Such cute bell bottoms. David didn't write a lot about his upbringing in the book, and there is surprisingly very little info online about him. He doesn't even have his own Wikipedia page.
Oh, that's interesting.
He just has a blurb under the Stargate page.
I feel like there's a Wikipedia page for anything and everyone
Right?
these days.
There is a David Morehouse who owns a hockey team who has a Wikipedia page, but yeah, not this one. So there wasn't a lot of info online. I was surprised. So I don't have a ton of info on his background, just what he wrote, which wasn't a lot. But after high school, David enrolled in Mira Costa Community College where he was elected student body president.
Nice.
I don't remember if there was a class president at the community college I went to. I feel like that's kind of interesting. I didn't realize there were still class presidents at community college.
Yeah, you're there for you're in and out of class. Community college doesn't seem like a college,
or something that I would take time to vote for as a student. I don't know.
Yeah.
He did it. He became the elected student body president of this community college. Good job. And it looks good on a resume or trying to get in some scholarships.
Oh, for sure.
And it worked out because he was able to get a scholarship to Brigham Young University in Utah, where he had plans to study to become a medical doctor, which which is like, damn.
Ambitious.
That's you're looking at like a decade of school there. So he started taking pre-med classes, and this may surprise no one, but David would also soon join the Mormon faith and church there. I mean, Utah. He's going to Brigham Young University. I mean, yeah. So he said that he had actually never been a part of an organized religion before, and he actually had opposed it in the past, but decided the Mormon faith made sense to him, so he joined.
That's very interesting because Mormons.
I wonder if he's just like, I mean, it's like the culture there, so maybe he just kind of fell into it, you know?
Yeah, and they're always so nice.
They're so nice.
They're so nice.
You don't know anyone, you're looking for friends, they're going to be your friend.
I mean, all religions are weird, to be honest.
It's all weird.
It seems weird to, like, oppose it, but then, like, be totally about it. You know?
Yeah.
But, I mean, it happens. It happens a lot.
Yeah, something has like similar has happened with family members of mine where they did not grow up religious but became Mormon like after high school or in high school.
Interesting.
Super interesting. So it happens. So yes, so he joins the Mormon faith. Okay, and one day David was taking part in helping other students on campus repaint a BYU sign when he saw a couple of men in army uniforms, and he was struck with the notion that he was in the wrong. He was like doing the wrong path in life.
Right, because he kind of always wanted to be in the military, right?
Right. And so he decided right then and there to join the AROTC, which is the Army Reserve Officer Training Corps. So David became a cadet, and he said that he immediately felt right in his choice and his place in the world. He was like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
He would excel in his training over the next few years, and he would also meet his future wife during that time. A friend of his set him up on a blind date with a BYU student, and all he knew about her was that her name was Debbie Bosch. He would be very pleasantly surprised and a little speechless when he was greeted by a beautiful brunette who had not only been the homecoming queen at her high school, but also the valedictorian as well.
Oh, hello.
She's got beauty and brains. She had also received the presidential scholarship, like David, to BYU.
Nice.
So he immediately fell head over heels for Debbie, and he said he followed her around like a lost little puppy. And after only 3 months of dating, he told Debbie to get dressed up because he was taking her to the finest restaurant in town. The finest restaurant in town ended up being the lobby of her dormitory, where
that you can do better.
So David and his friends put a cardboard box with a checkered tablecloth over it.
They made their own restaurant
for a table, and they got a couple of chairs. They lit a couple of candles, and they played a Neil Diamond cassette tape for Mood.
I mean, precious
vibe.
I mean, the effort. That's precious.
It's pretty cute, right? Like,
yeah.
So his friend was dressed in a tux and pretended to be the waiter.
Stop, I can't. This is so cute.
As he served them sparkling cider, because, you know, in foam cups. And
foam cups.
And handed them hand-drawn menus with the main course being spiced beef, which ended up being disgusting military rations. They talked about like just opening this can in front of her and just letting it like slide out of the can onto the plate, just like.
Oh, it's so precious and like also so sad.
Right. Well, luckily Debbie had a good sense of humor eventually. Like I think at first she was not about it. But she was like, okay, they fully committed to this. This is cute.
That's hilarious.
It's
especially
cute.
His friend involved, like
right.
Tugs, like precious.
Yeah. So yeah, she had a good sense of humor about it, and she even ate the questionable food that was served to her, which I'm not sure if I would have.
I rather like, can we order McDonald's? Like,
yeah, like I get the bit, but do we have to follow through with it?
Yeah.
So at the end of the meal, David asked her to marry him.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
Cute.
Hey, he didn't have a ring or any money. He was only 20 years old, but she still said yes, and they were married April 22nd in 1975.
A cute story.
Yeah, it is cute. Oh, she's also in the Mormon faith. I forgot to say that, so that all works out. Exactly 9 months later, they had their first child, so got right on it.
Oh, okay. That's how long it takes to grow.
Yeah. A son named Michael.
Oh,
Michael.
It's a little
grunt.
I know, it's like a Bob's Burgers, like.
It would be a tough go for the young couple, as being a military family meant that they had to move often and not always to the most desirable locations.
True.
David said in the first 10 years of their marriage, they would move 7 times.
Oh, no. That's
like,
a lot.
Ew, David.
Ew, David.
Ew, David. On April 16th, 1979, David was commissioned a second lieutenant of infantry and entered into active duty. And he has quite the list of credentials in his military career. I'm probably going to stumble over a lot of this, but I'll try. So he was given the General George C. Marshall Award, which is given to the top graduating cadet out of a pool of 2,500 officers. That's pretty impressive. He was also the honor graduate of the Infantry Officer Basic Course and the Army Pathfinder School. According to David Moore's website, which is pretty much one of the only sources of info out there on his life, he has a website and that's about it. So this is a quote from his website. During his tours of duty, Major Morehouse served in many staff and command positions, ranging from Airborne Rifle Company commander to commander of an elite Airborne Ranger Company. He commanded for over 4 years, while the majority of his peers commanded for only 18 months. He was aide-de-camp to 2 Army generals, the battalion executive officer, which is second in command of the 680 men of the 2nd Battalion, also the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, as well as being the chief of training for the 1,500 men and women of the 82nd Airborne Division.
That was a lot.
Credentials. I'm tired just talking about it, but
he has them.
Yeah, so he's like career military. Like he's in it to win it. He's doing a lot of stuff. He's a leader. He's a trainer at different points in his military career. He was also known as smart and level-headed. He was like really esteemed by his colleagues.
I mean, very impressive human being, sure.
Yeah, the military like really counted on him. But David would speak of how his shiny idealism for the American military started to falter and corrode. The longer he was in it, the more he felt like just a number to the government. Like the countless sacrifices he and his young family had to make because of his military career were beginning to wear on them.
Yeah.
David and Debbie would have 2 more children during this time. 2 girls named Mariah and Danielle. I mean, I can't imagine being his wife. He's gone almost all the time.
I know, that must be so hard.
Yeah, she's raising like 3 kids on her own. And she probably has to move all on her own too most of the time when they have to move.
You can't like settle. Like,
So it's now 1984, and Morehouse is serving as commander on the 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. His company was selected to deploy to the Kingdom of Jordan in 1987 in order to train Jordanian Rangers how to fight. Just can't with our military. We just do so much random shit. Like, we're just going to go over to Jordan and just like train these dudes to fight. Cool. So his departure from his family seemed a little different to David this time, though. His wife, Debbie, seemed more anxious than usual, and she squeezed him just a little tighter than she usually did before he left. Aww. So he thought that their parting, he just kind of thought about it later, like it just seemed a little different.
Yeah.
But life rolled on, and David traveled to Jordan to start training the Rangers there in the hot, sandy desert. One day during training, after marching an hour through the hot sun, David had his company stop to make camp in a valley named Batan el Ghul, which translates to the belly of the beast. As you can probably guess, the Jordanians considered the place to be haunted with murderous demons who came out at night to prey upon their victims.
Uh-oh.
Not good. Many of the grown Jordanian men in the company were scared of the place, and it wasn't uncommon to be awakened by their frightened screams in the middle of the night.
Super chill.
Yeah, so they don't want to stay here. But the Americans, of course, were dubious of these claims and ignored the Jordanians' insistence that this was a bad place to stay. David may not have agreed that the place was haunted, but he did say that it gave him like the heebie-jeebs for sure. Even if the place wasn't haunted, though, it sure looked creepy. David described it as looking like the surface of the moon with no greenery or life except for a bunch of flies, spiders, and other arachnids.
Oh, that's like hell, man.
Like a
that's
nightmare.
Yeah, not cute.
So the next day, the Jordanian soldiers would test their new skills in a training exercise conducted with the American Rangers. 5 bunkers had been constructed along with trenches, automatic weapons, and booby traps. The objective was to destroy these pretend enemy bunkers using indirect and direct fire, and they were free to use whatever weapons they had. The performance would be graded and evaluated by command. Morehouse followed the leader of the platoon of about 60 men during the exercise, evaluating their decision-making and tactical skills. So he's like the teacher walking behind them with the clipboard, basically, evaluating how they're doing in this training exercise. Okay, so the air was heavy with machine gun fire as the Rangers attacked the bunkers. A signal was given for the machine gun fire to change direction so that a squadron of men could change positions. But one Jordanian Ranger got confused and turned in the wrong direction.
No, I was going to say, how do they know to not shoot each other on accident?
So he started spraying the area with bullets where Morehouse and his men were at.
No.
The Rangers dove for cover. And these are live rounds. Like, these are bullets.
Yeah.
So the Rangers dove for cover. And Morehouse remembered seeing the platoon leader scream into his radio to cease fire right before his world went black.
Imagine being that guy. Realize you made the biggest mistake.
That one guy.
Oh, that's terrible.
You ready for a little break?
Yeah.
Let's take a little break.
I can breathe.
Okay. Hey.
Sup?
Welcome back. Mm-hmm. We added an in-studio guest audience member.
A canine of sorts.
Yes, there's a Roscoe here now. So.
Oh, there's a Roscoe.
If you hear any disembodied panting, it's not me or Shauna. It's actually the dog.
It could be me, though.
Yeah.
Could be a mixture of both of us.
Yeah, she could be panting. Okay, so we're back. All right. So right before we left, David's world went black as there was like
shots fired.
Shots, friendly fire, oopsie poopsie
An
pie.
oopsie one. Oh, it's sad.
That guy's going to feel like a real dumbass.
Yeah.
So honest mistake, but okay. So David's world went black. He recalls after the world went black, suddenly it was like the channel had been changed. It was like 1 minute he was awake, 1 minute it was just like black.
Uh-huh.
And then he was floating in an endless white mist.
Ooh.
He described feeling as though he was upright, but he couldn't like feel his body and he couldn't move.
Interesting.
Then the white mist suddenly dissipated and he was standing at the base of a grass-covered hill, completely nude, but he didn't seem to care.
Uh-huh.
He saw a group of people wearing long white flowy robes at the top of the grassy hill. A kind-faced man turned to him and beckoned him up the hill. Mm-hmm. David said he moved strangely up the hill. I'm not sure if he just like floated or yeah. And then stood in the center as the group stood around him. Huh. The man who had beckoned him over said, "Welcome, David. We have been waiting for you." And he was like, "What? Why? Like, why? Where am I?
Who are you?"
Yeah. And he said, "We called to give you instructions." And he was like, "Instructions? Like instructions for what? What? Like, who the hell are you guys?" And they answered, "Who we are is unimportant. What we have called you here for is this. You are to know from this point forward that what you have chosen to do in the world is wrong."
Wrong decision there, boy.
Oops. And he's like, "Wrong? What's wrong? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?" And the guy's like, "Your choice is wrong. Pursue peace. Teach peace. And the path to it will be made known to you. You have tasted death. Now bring life. We will be with you always."
Vegas fuck, I hate it.
Then suddenly David's ears were pierced with a ringing sound that made him clap his hands over his ears as he fell to the ground. He could only lie there in pain as the white mist surrounded him once more, and then the world went black once again.
Okay.
When David opened his eyes, it was to the face of a sweaty platoon radio operator who said, "Jesus Christ, sir, you all right? You have a bullet in your head."
Yikes, in his head.
The young man quickly corrected himself after Morehouse started to freak out and said, "Oh, well, not in your head, it's in your helmet."
Oh, God. Okay, you got me there.
And sure enough, Morehouse's helmet had a bullet deeply lodged in the spot directly above David's right eye. And it had been a direct hit. It wasn't like a ricochet or something off of a building. So he was super lucky to be alive.
Oh, my God. Always wear helmets.
Always wear your helmet. After 20 minutes, David was back on his feet and back to work.
Wow.
Just like rub some dirt in it.
That's crazy.
But over the next several hours, an angry red knot would form where the bullet hit, like his, right above his eye, until it was the size of half a grapefruit. And he had a headache like you wouldn't believe.
Okay, so he was swelling from that.
Yeah, he was getting a big old lump where it hit.
Ouch, still.
And a really bad headache. I mean, his bell got rung like hard.
How do you not have a concussion?
He probably did.
Jesus.
I don't know why he went back to work. So that evening, David's head was still aching as he went to sleep in a tent full of other smelly, sweaty dudes. But he would wake up suddenly in the middle of the night to an eerily lit desert. Even though it was the middle of the night, he described the ground being illuminated with a grayish blue light, and he watched in horror as he saw several dark figures emerge and float effortlessly into their camp.
Ew.
They're still in this like haunted valley or whatever.
Okay, so now it's like the demons.
Yes, the belly of the beast. David had walked outside of the tent at this point, and he heard a Jordanian man scream from his tent. He turned to run for help, but ran right into a dark figure. Well, I should say he ran right through the dark figure.
I'm getting the chills.
Because, yeah, he runs through it. David is so freaked out by this that he collapses and then wakes up on the ground outside of his tent the next day in bright sunshine.
Oh, weird. Okay, weird.
So he just like passed back out. Nobody else seemed freaked out or alarmed, so David just tries to ignore the night before and has his head looked at by the medic. But David tells the medic that he's fine. He just needs more aspirin or whatever.
Because aspirin's totally fine.
That's all I need. He knows, because like he knows that if he shares what he thinks he saw last night, they would send him packing real fast.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds crazy.
Right. And is like in his mind, I mean, the military career that he had worked for his whole life would be over. And he was like, I just can't let that happen. So I'm just not going to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Several days later, the men would visit the ancient and beautiful city of Petra, where Morehouse would see the mysterious, peaceful man in white robes once again. Mm. David was alone when the man appeared about 50 feet away from him and said, "Seek peace and become a teacher of it." Then the man turned and walked behind a large stone and vanished.
I would have so many more questions. Stop being so vague as fuck.
You already said that.
What the fuck do you mean?
Elaborate, please. You're just repeating yourself at this point. Yep, so he just disappears. He's like, cool. Morehouse would have a conversation days later with the Jordanian colonel about their time in Baton El Ghul, and the colonel told him men often came to those hills to ponder their fate and were sent messages by angels. He's like, totally not weird, dude. What happened to you happens all the time. It's not a big deal, big guy. And
was he like he was awake during that last one, or
during when he saw the man, or when he saw all of the dark figures?
The man, the second.
He was awake, yeah.
Interesting.
That time, yeah, they were just like kind of being tourists in the ancient city, and he just kind of like went to this, I think, place. I don't remember. It was like, some special ancient place, and he went up there and he was by himself, and then this guy appeared to him.
Yeah, it makes it weirder when you're not like unconscious.
Yeah, he just was actually awake and saw it. It was just pretty weird. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so he talks to this Jordanian colonel who's like not weirded out.
Yeah,
he's like, it's fine. It
happens all the time.
Totally normal. You're in a haunted valley. It's like super normal.
We tried to tell you about this, but
yeah, you didn't believe us. It's your fault. Yeah, but Morehouse is like, well, I beg to differ, but he doesn't mention what he's been seeing to anyone else, and eventually finishes up training in Jordan and goes back home. Although he's happy to be back with his family, David quickly begins having problems sleeping. He dreams vividly and lucidly when he does, and the dreams are so realistic, David begins to think he is seeing visions of the future.
Ooh.
but many times he is unable to control any of the things that he's seeing when he's trying to sleep, and they flash and change constantly, just like turning the TV channel, which is driving him insane.
Yeah, that would be a lot.
Yeah, because he can't sleep. He's just seeing these like images constantly flashing. In June 1987, 2 months after arriving home, it got so bad one night that David finally breaks down and tells his wife what he's been dealing with, because he still hadn't told her, by the way. Not talking to her about any of this.
Like, I almost got shot in the head.
Yeah, I think she actually found out about the headshot from someone else. Like, he didn't tell her that either.
Ooh, I'd be pissed.
All right, I'd be so pissed. And that's kind of why he didn't tell her. It's like, she's going to be so mad. But she's like, okay, well, you need to go to the doctor. Like, yesterday, you need help. And he's like, I can't. They'll think I'm crazy, and then I'm out of a job.
I get it.
Yeah, she doesn't like this, and she makes him promise to see a doctor if it gets worse. He's like, sure, and continues his work in the military.
Men.
In May of 1987, David left the Rangers and was assigned to an intelligence unit called the Secret Army of Northern Virginia, which sounds like a right-wing militia if I ever heard one. But no, it's,
For real.
It's a classified unit doing classified shit that David had to lie to his family about.
Yeah, still very shady, weird stuff.
Yeah, he talked about, like, this was his first job where he actually had to lie to his family.
Oh, that's crazy and sucky and
Yeah,
weird.
he said he hated it. It made it really hard on him.
Yeah, because it's like harder to even process everyday life.
Right, you just have to have this, who else are you going to talk to? Like, yeah, sucky. It was his introduction into the intelligence community, and he wasn't wild about it. Also assigned to this unit was a psychologist named Dr. Dr. Innes Barker, who did frequent check-ins to keep track of the unit's mental stability. During one of these check-ins, David finally confides in Dr. Barker about what happened in the desert and the things that he had seen since.
Good, the right person to talk to. Okay.
Right, finally. He talks about all the sleep problems and how he's having vivid nightmares. He also told the doctor about a recent experience he had when he went camping with his son and claimed to have astral projected in his sleep. Oof. He didn't use the term astral projected, but it's what he described.
Right.
He rose above his body, high into the sky, and looked down at the earth below. He is describing all this.
Yeah.
Now, it's at this point in the story where I start to get a little... Well, I'll just see how you feel. So, okay. Dr. Barker is like, well, David... Some people would call that a gift.
No.
This is a psychologist saying this.
I don't know how to feel.
That's right. That's what I'm at.
I mean, I see how some people would think that. I'm obviously in the direction of like loving to hear how that's a thing, but a psychiatrist,
as a medical doctor, I would hope that would not be your first assumption.
Yikes. Okay.
Yeah. So that's Dr. Barker. He's like, well, yeah, some people call that a gift. And David's like, what? He's like, I thought you were going to drag me out of here in like a straitjacket. Mm-hmm. Barker instead says that he has friends that are working on a project that might find David's visions interesting.
Oh, God.
He opens his desk and pulls out a few folders labeled classified and hands them to David. I also love that he just has these in his desk. Like,
super casual.
On command. He's like, read these and then like come talk to me about it in a couple days. See how I feel. I feel like maybe he should have done more doctoring. That's my opinion.
Yeah, you should have done the more doctory stuff first.
Right. That's like my first red flag. I'm like, that's not cool. Like, you should have. Cool. Okay, so when David gets back to his desk, he begins flipping through the files stamped Secret Grill Flame in big old red letters. He can't believe what he's reading as he flips through 3 different remote viewing sessions. People describe their whereabouts as though they were floating around above it, much like David's experience when he was camping.
Okay, so other records of astral projecting?
Yeah, or like remote viewing basically is...
I see.
Yeah. So he's reading about these sessions and he's like, wow, this is kind of weirdly similar to some of the stuff I've experienced. Mm-hmm. A couple of days later, David meets with Dr. Barker again. And he's like, like that.
What do you think?
What do you think? And David's like, this is nuts. I can't control the things I see, and I never wanted any of it, and I just want to be normal again. I just like feel really sad for him because he's like, I don't want this. Like, I want to be normal again.
Yeah, like I came to you to help me, and then you're like making me deep dive into it.
You're like, push it. Go a little further with it. So Barker is like, well, you basically have two options. You can seek psychiatric care for this, or you can give this classified program a chance and see if you can learn to control your abilities and become a remote viewer. But they have to want you first. So you have to interview with the program first. So basically, try the secret program or pack your bags for the psychiatric hospital, is what he's saying.
I don't like that. That's not how it should go.
I know. Yeah. David needs some time to think about it and goes home. But that night, he has a horrible nightmare, and he wakes up to his family trying to subdue him in the backyard, where he sleepwalked into the backyard. And he was just thrashing around on the ground and screaming.
Oh my gosh.
David tells Dr. Barker about this the next day, and he's like, great, the remote viewing unit is going to love you.
No, I want to slap this guy across the face.
He's like, let's go see them. So they drive to Fort Meade and pull up to this parking lot surrounded by thick trees. The area is kind of obscure, and there's two narrow, long buildings there. These buildings used to be an old World War II baker's school, and they had been repurposed for the remote viewing program.
So it used to be like a bakery for cakes? And then...
It was a school for bakers. Learned how to be a baker.
To bake baked goods?
Yes.
Like sweets?
Yes.
And things that
breads?
go in ovens.
And breads.
And so then now it turns into this weird scientific project. Yeah,
so there's like they're two long buildings, and they're like, well, I guess we'll just retrofit for this remote viewing program. Probably, they did describe the buildings as very strange. Like the layout of them is obviously not meant for what they're doing. But that's where they're at. Okay, yeah. So the two buildings looked rough from the outside. It didn't look like people really cared for the grounds. Like there's weeds everywhere. The paint is peeling, and it doesn't look like they have the highest budget for their operation. Mm-hmm. But for all the rough appearances on the outside, there were still these like thick metal doors accessible only by a code. So it's like it's supposed to look shitty, maybe, to not draw attention to it, but
still very secretive.
Still very secretive. Yes.
Very close.
Secure.
Mm-hmm, secure.
Once David stepped inside one of the buildings, he was taken aback by an enormous mural painted on the entrance wall inside. It was a breathtaking galaxy with magenta and crimson gas clouds.
Oh, I'd love that.
Right? And not at all what David was expecting to see in a government building.
Yeah, but it sounds pretty.
Right? Just this huge galaxy mural. Gorge. So he is introduced to much of the small team there, and the guy in charge at that time, Mr. Levy, takes David to his office to discuss the department with him. David asks, what do you guys do here exactly? Mm-hmm. And Levy responds, this is a quote, "What we do here is train individuals to transcend time and space, to view persons, places, and things remote in time and space, and to gather intelligence information on them."
I'd be like, what is everyone smoking?
Cool. So what's the drug situation around here? Because you guys are on something, right?
Because that's crazy.
Yeah, he's just says that casual.
I wonder what his face was like after hearing that.
I know.
Oh.
I bet his jaw just dropped open.
Yeah.
He warns David that his life would change completely if he joined the project, and he needed to be prepared for that. He explained that while many people in the program benefited from these new skills, others were less fortunate and suffered very damaging mental harm, resulting in their removal from the program. He's like, I'm just going to say up front, you could fuck up your brain.
He already thinks his brain is so fucked up.
I know. But even after the disclaimer, David still said he was interested. And I don't know if it's Levy or Levi.
It's probably Levy, like Dan Levy.
Yeah. So Levy said, cool, we'll be in touch, and sent Barker and David on their way.
I mean, I would be intrigued too. It's like, these are crazy government people.
I know.
Super serious. So
I
like,
would do it
what?
100%.
I want to see more.
I would 100% do it.
I totally understand.
It's like, especially for like the boring, I don't know, where he was at, he was not happy. And then he's like, hey, do you want to do some really weird shit? I'd be like, hell yes.
Yeah, right.
So cool. But I guess he's a different person than we are. So
yeah, true.
A little more straight laced, I think. So meanwhile, David's nightmares are only getting worse. And it's really starting to strain his marriage and his relationship with his family, especially since he's so secretive about everything going on at work. So he's just like tense all the time and he's got these nightmares. So they're just not getting the best of him. Yeah. And he still hadn't told Debbie about this secret remote viewing program that he was considering.
Well, he's not supposed to, right?
They do say like this is something you needed to discuss with your family. Oh. He was like in an intelligence unit, so he wasn't allowed to talk about his job then. But this remote viewing project is like a different animal. Yeah, it is secret, but I think he's going to be allowed to tell his family about it.
Yeah, I mean,
because he's going to be different.
Yeah, they should know.
Right. No, yeah, because I remember there's a part in the book where they actually have Debbie like come to the building and they like talk to her. So they're like, these are some things that you might have to be dealing with from now on.
Man, that would be so intense.
Right? She's like, great. We're already dealing with like walking nightmares. Just awesome. So still hadn't talked to Debbie. That's pretty bad. And it wasn't long before Barker came to David and told him that the program wanted him to join. He's like, great. And Barker, he's like giddy like schoolgirl. Like he's super excited, more excited than David even. Mm-hmm. And then he scurries away to tell their supervisor that David would be transferring. Unbeknownst to David, though, this arrangement with the remote viewing program had all been done without the knowledge or go-ahead from his current supervisor. And when he found out, he was absolutely livid. Not only did he scream at Barker, he also called David to tell him he wouldn't allow him to throw his career away for a bunch of fucking freaks. His words, not mine.
Okay.
He even went as far as to call David's wife to tell her what David was considering, which did not help things in the marriage department.
Drama.
Right? Like, the gall, the audacity. But, David desperately tried to convince her that this program may be the solution to his problems. Debbie still wasn't having it. She thought David needed medical help and thought the military would only make things worse for him. But David had his mindset.
Oh, man.
So without her blessing or the blessing of his commanding officer, David Morehouse joins the remote viewing program. And just as he was told, his life would never be the same again.
I would be so pissed if I were her. Yeah. Oh, I'm already so angry. Like he betrayed me.
He betrayed me? My family?
Come on.
Yeah. So do you need a quick break again? One more?
Yes.
Just throw a quick one in there. Okay, welcome back.
Thank y'all.
Once again. All right. So, the first day David Morehouse showed up to his new job in the remote viewing program, he was given an official tour of the place and met all of his coworkers, many of them being remote viewers. David recalled passing by a woman named Carol who was studying tarot cards at her desk.
Aw.
How fucking fun, though.
I know, but I want that to be my job.
Right? He also met his trainer, Mel Riley, who he would work with closely in the remote viewing program, and the pair would become lifelong friends. Whatever David was expecting his first day to be like, he was probably pretty disappointed when he was told what he would be doing for like the foreseeable future. David's first assignment was to read stacks on stacks on stacks of files about the history of the program and its findings, as well as information on foreign governments' psychic studies.
Ooh, I mean, boring but not boring?
I know, I was like, I would probably be really into this. It might kill you.
I mean,
Shauna as a
lot
person.
of reading.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it would be a page turner.
I'm on that vein as well, but then I'm like, the government still makes anything sound boring as fuck. So
that's also true.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it would be really interesting to read. Back at home, David actually does attempt to explain his new job to his wife and kids. But
It's
yeah,
the kids are not going to get this.
he's trying to explain this to his children, and he just kind of ends up scaring them.
Yeah.
They don't understand it. They're like, our dad was like this soldier, and now you're doing what? They don't get it. And it's a pretty religious family.
Right.
Yeah, and he's basically going against everything that they've been taught
I
to
didn't even
believe.
think about that.
Yeah, so the religious aspect is a big part of the strife as well. Because and they tell him that in the beginning, like, your core belief system is going to be questioned. Like, you're going to have to face that.
Yeah.
So he tries to explain it. He just kind of freaks them out. But while he believes like that he has to do this to help fix himself, Debbie's still like this program is only going to make it worse.
For sure.
She's like, instead of helping to heal you, like, the military is taking advantage of you for their own purposes, and they don't care the damage that it causes to you.
I would be so pissed because it's like, you're ruining my husband type thing.
Yeah, and like, I totally don't blame her. I think I'd feel the same way. Yeah. Especially she's the one dealing with all of his like mental health issues at home, like all the sleepwalking and the nightmares and the terrors and like.
And she takes care of the kids.
Yeah, that's like, a lot.
Man, I would not want to be in her shoes.
Mm-hmm. But David pushes ahead with his new work, and after he finished reading all those files, he was shown the 2 identical remote viewing rooms, which were located in the second building. So there's the 2 buildings. The remote view building is the other one. I think the first one is just mostly for like offices.
Makes sense.
Both rooms were furnished and decorated in the same shade of gray. Gray carpet, gray walls, gray light fixtures. The desk and chair were gray, as well as a gray like couch-like platform that you would get strapped on like into during the remote viewing.
I'm assuming there's a purpose for all the gray.
Yes, I'll tell you in a second. And there was like all these sensors and monitors that you would also get hooked up to in the beginning, like to monitor your brainwaves and your heart and all that stuff. David was told the gray color was to keep the environment as neutral as possible, as not to distract or influence the remote viewer during their session. So they didn't want them to like draw any, I don't know, conclusions, like maybe subconsciously from things that are in the room.
I see.
So they're trying to make it as like least distracting as possible.
Okay.
There was also a separate room where a monitor would be viewing everything happening in the remote viewing room. There were screens hooked up to cameras in the other room, as well as microphones for sound and an intercom system. All of the remote viewing sessions were recorded, cataloged, and kept in a nearby closet. Should be a fun movie to watch. Put those all together. But before David could spend any time in those rooms, he had to go through a lot of classes and lectures first, taught by Mel Riley. During one of these lectures, Riley explained to David that remote viewing a moment in the past was fairly simple, as it had already happened, and you were basically just looking at a snapshot in time. Viewing the present was similar, as it is locked, and you cannot change what is happening. You can only view and experience it. As for viewing future events, that was something that he was told they were still experimenting with. Mel said that a remote viewer could see a snapshot of a future event, but there were so many variables that could affect it between now and the time it happened that the predictions could never be reliable. David would sit through weeks of lecture before he was finally taken to the remote viewing room to be hooked up for his first session. He's just like, oh boy, oh boy. Super excited. Mel Riley took his seat in the observation room while David sat in the couch-like chair and began the cool-down session, which consisted of him listening to a focus tape designed with certain tonal frequencies that help merge the brain waves of the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Don't ask me if that's a bunch of malarkey. I really don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Let's just go with it for the sake of the story.
Sure.
So once his brain waves were where they wanted them, like merged and whatnot, another trainer named Kathleen came in and placed a piece of paper. Wow, that's a tongue. Placed a piece of paper on the table in front of him. David was then given a set of random coordinates, not latitude and longitude like we talked about last time. This is just a random set of numbers assigned to the target. I guess they had a random number generator they used to assign targets with, like in an attempt to be as fair and non-biased as possible. Because with latitude and longitude, there's always going to be the argument that the person could have had like former, knowledge about latitude and longitude and where stuff is.
Sure.
So this way it's nice and random. Anyway, so David was supposed to write down the coordinates given to him by Kathleen and then produce an ideogram, which is his automatic response to the coordinates. So he has a pen and a paper. He's supposed to start he's supposed to get this feeling and then just start writing, like instinctually whatever comes to him. Basically after
So not like drawing anything, but like
he could be drawing, he could just be writing like things that come to him or things that he sees. So let's see. Yeah, so if he was in the zone, basically, then he would start writing. And it was supposed to be descriptive of the target. The first attempt from David was a bust. Nothing happened, and he became super frustrated. He was told to take a break and to come back and try again. They're like, it's your first time, bro. Like, calm down. The second attempt, something clicked, and David slipped into what they called the ether. He felt his hand holding the pen jerk across the paper. And he was like, whoa, an ideogram. And Kathleen's like, focus up, my dude. And she asked, is it man-made or natural? Referring to the target. David focused, and a rush of images came to him. He suddenly felt as though he were falling through a bright tunnel. And then it stopped abruptly. As he left the tunnel of light, all of a sudden he saw sparkling white substance and brown jagged objects, as well as some sort of like green material. He said he felt cold, but could also feel the warm sun on his back. He replied to Kathleen that what he saw was not man-made. Kathleen asks him to draw what he sees. David describes it as rising up sharply, peaking, and dropping sharply, and he was sure that it was natural. As David focused, he suddenly connected all of the pieces and cried out that what he was seeing was a mountain. He's like, I'm sure of it. It's a mountain. When the test concluded, David was given his results and was blown away as he pulled out a photo of Mount Fuji.
Okay. I don't know how to feel.
Are you confused or you just don't know how to feel?
I'm a little confused, but...
Which part? Can I explain it for you?
Please. I don't know. Okay, so he's in the ether and he's seeing pieces of the mountain and then he puts it together and he sees a mountain, but he sees the real mountain.
Yeah, it's kind of like he's getting like the sense. So like he describes it almost like astral projection, basically, where he
kind of flew there. In a way.
He feels himself traveling through this tunnel of light, and then he feels himself like being pulled towards the target, basically. So once he gets to where the target is that he's supposed to be envisioning or whatever, then he starts getting getting these images, I guess, and kind of a feeling. It's kind of like he's there, but it's not super detailed.
Right. And so, this was the coordinates or whatever that they gave him.
Yeah. So it was like,
beginning.
Yeah. So they randomly assign like, I don't know, 5946. That means Mount Fuji. They have that like connection, I guess. Otherwise, there is no connection between the two.
I see.
But because they've made that predetermined connection, that's why he's able to be pulled towards the target. So that's
what they were hoping he was seeing, and he saw it.
Yes.
Wow.
And he'll go on to describe it. He kind of describes it as being in that space, like he is seeing Mount Fuji, or he's like it's like he's floating around Mount Fuji.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's like feeling the sun. He's like feeling the atmosphere.
Weird.
So he's just like, holy shit, it was Mount Fuji. I saw a mountain. I was right. Out of all the things I could have seen, I saw the right thing.
That's also true. It could have been anything. And it was right.
Yeah. So he also describes that when he slips into the ether, here, I'll just say what he described a little bit more, like we were talking about. So he travels through this tunnel until he reaches his target, but he describes being able to feel the speed at which he's moving. And if he goes too fast, he feels sick. So that's interesting. And it's like he's the ghost version of himself, of his body. And he says it takes him getting used to, like, from how to move, from how he described it. like once he reached his target, he would have difficulty controlling his body to look at the right thing. So he like described this moment. He was like trying to look at a specific spot, but then all of a sudden his nose would be like 2 inches away from what he was trying to look at. Like he zoomed in way too close. So he was like really struggling to figure out how to use his astral body, I guess.
Yeah. It's like using a part of your soul or consciousness, taking a piece of it and having that travel.
Right.
Because there's a whole theory that like, well, I mean, I think about like the reincarnation cases that I've like listened to and studied or whatever. And like, you know, people can have like different parts of their, you know, quote unquote consciousness in different parts of the world or body or whatever. It's like your higher self is like, you know what I mean? Like there's
like,
different parts of your consciousness.
Like out of body experiences when people like float above themselves, like that kind of stuff
so
too.
it's like learning how to control a piece of that.
Yeah. Like
but
if you
being conscious of it at the same time.
Right. Kind of like lucid dreaming with your spiritual body.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just like, yes. So he's trying to figure out how to control his spirit body. And he was taught to visualize how he wanted to move in order to make his phantom body move in the ether. So he would have to visualize moving forward and then he would move forward.
Interesting.
Instead of like using your physical, you know, body to walk there.
I want to know what his physical body looks like or is doing. Is his eyes are closed? Is he shaking? Is it like some sort of like a trancey kind of...
Yeah, I don't know. They don't really describe... Like. I would assume maybe his eyes would close or...
I mean...
I don't know.
Or if he's like still aware while he's doing it.
Because he's talking. He is talking to them as he's doing this.
But yeah, I wonder how that works.
There's tapes of it somewhere. This is filmed. Yes, so he's trying to learn how to visualize how to move. And he said that because he was a phantom, he could pass through solid objects and walls with no problem. And he said that it felt like a soft puff of air whenever he passed through something solid.
It's so weird.
Isn't that like weird and specific? Yeah. One of the less pleasant aspects of remote viewing was that David said he could feel the emotion of the place that he was in. If he was sent to remote view a terrible place, he could be overcome with the emotion of it. Like, think of it as everything has a spirit. Even walls. And that's not a new idea. I think the term is called animism. It's like the belief that everything like has a spirit or a soul.
Yeah, or like stones, you know, aka crystals, or like buildings can absorb energy.
Right, exactly. So it's been around. I mean, that idea has been around for a really long time. It's shown up in multiple religions. For example, on one remote viewing session, David is sent to a place where he describes feeling endless horror and pain and sadness. He sees muddy ground and long stone walls, red brick buildings, and rows of what looked like barracks. David was asked to explore the place more, but was eventually overcome with such strong emotions that he couldn't focus on any of what the images were anymore, and he had to be pulled out of the session. He would find out later that they had sent him to Dachau, or, you know, the infamous Nazi concentration camp.
Oh my God.
So they sent him to like pretty much the worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst.
And so, yeah, so he like couldn't even handle it after being there for just a little bit.
I mean, yeah.
So David was told that all recruits must be sent to these places that elicit strong emotions in order to become accustomed to more subtle differences in other locations. It's kind of like what we were talking about the other night with how people do the over-exaggerated baby talk to babies.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah, when you're a fresh baby, you don't really understand like complex emotions. And in order to understand the more subtle emotions, like later in life, you kind of have to be calibrated by exaggerations in the beginning.
Yeah, so like being really expressive with your face and your voice, so the baby knows, you know, happy. And
right,
like,
this
good.
is happy, right. So for David, in order for him to be able to get an emotional read on a place like, you know, just a run-of-the-mill embassy, for example, he needed to first learn what it felt like to be in a place with extreme emotions like a concentration camp. Hopefully that means he got to see some happy places too.
Take him to Disney World. Make
the
him go on
happiest
a
place on
ride.
earth.
Come on.
Yeah. David also described a skill he learned while remote viewing, where he could locate a target and then shift time forwards or backwards. Kind of like hitting rewind or fast forward on your TV, or like watching a time-lapse video of what you're viewing. So he would just like stand there at this place in time and then just watch time fast forward until he got to the moment he wanted.
Ooh.
Isn't that weird? I thought that was nuts. What else is pretty nuts? Morehouse was also sent to a location where he said the air was burning his throat and everything was an amber color. The landscape was desolate and rocky, and when he looked to the sky, it was black, not blue, and he couldn't see the moon. David realized he wasn't on Earth anymore. His trainer
Get out of here.
asked him if he was alone, and he's like, well, I sure fucking hope so, Kathleen. Sure fucking hope I'm alone. But he sees no structures or signs of life. So he does, the trick where he travels backward in time, and he travels quite a ways back until he sees tracks in the ground that appeared to have been made by something living, but he couldn't make out what.
What planet is he on?
You may not be surprised to find out that he was remote viewing Mars.
Okay, I was guessing Mars.
And claimed that at one point there may have been life there. And I'd say like evidence lately kind of points to, there could have been life on Mars at some point.
I mean, didn't we prove there was water?
Yeah,
there's ice on there.
Right.
And it could have happened.
Yeah, so kind of gets, I feel like 10 years ago I'd be like, no.
Totally.
No. But now we're like, oh, there's water?
Yeah.
Water means there might be life. So yeah, that was pretty wild. So he remote viewed Mars, supposedly.
So every time they're asking him to go somewhere, he's going to the right place.
Yeah, he's good at this. He's really good at it. He doesn't, it's not like 100% success rate every time, but he at least self-described himself as being one of the better remote viewers.
Okay.
Yeah. David also tried an open search remote viewing where he went out into the ether with no target or destination and just saw what he could see. Just gonna go float around, see what happens.
Seems even more overwhelming.
Right? It was during one of these sessions that David claimed to have visited other alien planets and civilizations.
I mean, I would.
Like, that's the first place I would go.
I need to know where the aliens are.
So he said he saw planets made out of black crystals.
Ooh.
And alien beings who looked oddly similar to humans. David said he sensed that they knew he was there and said that some of them looked right at him and smiled, but didn't seem to be particularly bothered or concerned by his presence.
I weirdly love that.
They're just like, what's up, bro?
Aliens.
Like they're smarter than us. They're like, oh, look at this idiot. He's never seen anything like us.
I know. And of course they would be intelligent enough. Like, oh, look at that little like partial consciousness of
just floating
of
around.
A person here. Like,
oh, he's learning. So these discoveries started to make David realize just how small we are in the universe.
No shit.
So he's getting better and better at remote viewing as his training continues. But his marriage and family life are falling apart, especially with the increase, again, of nightmares and sleepwalking. It's not getting any better.
No way.
Right? There were nights he dreamed he graphically murdered his entire family and would wake up screaming and thrashing on the ground, drenched in tears and sweat.
What if he actually was and he was sleepwalking doing it?
Right. The way they described it in the book, I thought that's what happened at first. I was like, holy shit, did he massacre his family? Like he snapped and then he woke up. And I was like, huh.
I just watched like a 2020 episode of the guy who claimed to sleepwalk murder his wife. And he had no consciousness of doing it.
Yes, I know that story.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a crazy story.
It's weird.
Ooh, I thought you were going to talk about the soldier that massacred a bunch of people.
Oh. Shit.
Oh, okay. Different story. So, yeah, so family life, not going great. On another night, his desert spirit friend in the white robe showed up to give him another message.
Is it about fucking teaching peace again?
Not quite. He basically was like, so, my dude, shit is about to hit the fan here, like, real soon, and your life is about to get really hard. Sorry about it. Bye. And
That's it?
yeah.
Like it already isn't?
I know. He's like, wait, worse than now? Sadly, the man in the white robes would be correct. And David's life went from bad to worse. He eventually stopped going to church after other members of the congregation were less than open about David's new outlook on the universe and her place in it.
Yeah.
Because I guess they would have like this weekly, I don't know, service where somebody in the congregation was supposed to do a little lesson or a little speech. Well, it was David's turn.
Uh-oh.
Can you guess what he talked about?
Oh, no, that must have been cringe.
Yeah, it didn't go over well.
Yikes.
They weren't into different universes and astral projection and
Yikes.
yeah, which also like mortified his wife. So
oh, and then like the community embarrassment.
it's not good. Then his workplace bestie Mel retired, as did his boss. And we all know what it's like to lose a workplace bestie. It's devastating. Soon after that, David was called to a meeting where he was told that he was receiving a promotion to major and a transfer to the Army's Command and General Staff College in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Morehouse didn't view this as good news. He wanted to stay where he was in the remote viewing program, but it didn't matter. He had orders and he had to follow them. Within the year, he would leave Project Sunstreak and remote viewing behind. Before David left, he would help with a case involving Pan Am flight. It's funny, he did Pan Am flight. Okay, that would have really freaked me out if it was the same flight. No, it's not.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Pan Am flight 103, which had exploded over Lockerbie, Scotland, killing everyone on board.
Was that a terrorist attack or?
Yes, it ended up being a bomb.
I literally was.
Ew, if you would have done that, I would have peed.
I literally almost watched a video on it and I'm like, ooh, that should be like one on my list because it's a terrorist.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, you could, and now you'll know that someone else knew about it.
Get out of here. Okay.
So they work on this case, and the remote viewers came to the conclusion that 2 bombs had been planted in the aircraft's front left cargo hold. This conclusion would be the same the authorities came to days later. David also claimed to do several missions during the war on drugs in the U.S. He and his other viewers would look inside cargo holds and ships to pinpoint who was carrying drugs, as well as locating the drop-off areas for the dealers. Morehouse even claimed to have helped in the hunt for Pablo Escobar. But after only being a fully fledged remote viewer for just over a year, David left for his new assignment. His mental state quickly deteriorated without the remote viewing to keep his visions grounded. He stopped sleeping, shaving, socializing, and started sleeping in his car. His emotions were all over the place. He would sob unexpectedly. His mind was just full of images that he had seen while remote viewing. I mean, they sent him to a concentration camp. He's probably fucked up.
Ugh.
In November of 1990, his wife officially separated from him, and he rarely saw his kids. David rented out a single room, which is where he spent most of his time, and became even more reclusive. It was during this time that David and his old friend Mel Riley were contacted by a private party to do some remote viewing sessions for them. I'm not going to get into all the details on that, or we'll be here all day, but long story short, he and Mel reunite and they do some private remote viewing sessions for this private party. And let's just say the military would not view this kindly. They could get into huge trouble, especially David, because he's still in the military.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
While they were reunited, David and Mel received news that the remote viewing program would probably lose its funding soon and be shut down. The pair discussed how this gift of remote viewing could be used for so many positive things, and instead it was being used to find drugs and weapons and bad guys for the government. So this is when David and Mel decide that they want to go public with this and write a book on remote viewing. They knew the risks involved, especially for David since he was still in the military, but they started planning and writing anyway. It wouldn't take long for the news to make it back to the Defense Intelligence Agency what David and Mel Riley were up to, and David claimed they started scrambling for a plan to cover their butts. Soon, his phone was being tapped, their cars were being followed, someone even broke into David's old house where Debbie and the kids were and ransacked his old office.
Oh my gosh.
Several weeks later, David was called into his commanding officer's office to be informed that they had several charges levied against him, including adultery, communicating a threat, larceny of government property, and multiple counts of conduct unbecoming of an officer. I mean, half of those charges sound like something from a Catholic school, like adultery. Like, what? I didn't realize you could be charged with adultery and get in trouble for it. It's pretty crazy. So David knew that most of these charges were utter bullshit, but there wasn't really anything that he could do. He knew he could try and fight the charges, which he did at first, but knew that ultimately it was a fight he would lose. And when he lost, he would be court-martialed and dishonorably discharged, losing all of his pay and benefits. In the end, David decided it would be best to resign, which is what he did in 1995 after 18 years of service. The book he and his collaborators were planning on writing never got finished, although David did, of course, write Psychic Warrior eventually. He watched as the CIA released documents on the remote viewing program in 1995 and saw the world tear it apart.
Oof.
But it didn't stop him from wanting to share his experience with the world. In the book, he and his wife do get back together and he reconciles with his family.
Oh.
He also seemed to get his mental health under control and stable, although he said he was always able to access the ether when he chose. On his current website, he is married to someone by a different name. So I don't know if they changed her name in the book or maybe it just didn't work out. Probably because he didn't give up remote viewing, but who knows? But David did seem to listen to the message he had received in the desert after the headshot, and he pursued peace. He has a PhD in education, 2 master's degrees, so he is technically Dr. David Morehouse now.
Sure.
He's written 4 books total, including a book titled Remote Viewing, the Complete Handbook for Coordinate Remote Viewing. So if you're intrigued by all this, you can read his book or go to his website. I'll put it in the show notes, but he does teach it. So I also listened to a podcast called Everything Imaginable, which had an interview with David in September of this year.
Ooh.
So it was just a couple months ago.
Okay.
And I gotta say, like, he sounds fine. He sounds like smart. He sounds educated.
Legit.
Yeah. And yeah, so it's just like, it's hard. I don't know. It's hard.
That's interesting.
He also, like, in this interview, talks a lot about other details that are really interesting. So I listened to the interview if you'd like. I thought it was really good. Yeah, but my biggest takeaway was that he seemed perfectly level-headed and like a reasonable person. Yeah. He was able to tell his story sequentially with a lot of detail in a way that was like super believable, like names, dates. He had it all straight. So it was hard not to believe him, like, to be honest. Like,
totally.
But it's such a crazy story. So yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that he was able, in his words, to like get his abilities under control and is like now trying to help other people. But with that being said, I think it's super important to say that David Morehouse was probably the exception to the rule for how this could have turned out and been resolved. Like, in any case, if you start slipping off to another plane of existence without trying or start having hallucinations, like, go to the fucking doctor, full stop. Just go to the doctor. Even David said that he went to get examined physically and they found nothing seriously wrong with him, so he continued to serve. But by his account in the book, he was having like severe mental health problems, and even after he went to a unit psychologist and told them what was going on, he still didn't get proper care.
Totally. That's what's so infuriating.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. I mean, he was like, you can get treatment and leave the military, or you can do this crazy cool secret project. Like, what do you think he's going to pick?
Yeah.
So in that respect, I think there's like a lot of things wrong in this story that could have turned out worse.
Yeah.
And hopefully he was able to get like therapy when he got out, because like he went through a lot of shit. But yeah, and take care of your mental health, I guess. That's my PSA, and that's the end of the story.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, for sure. Take care of your mental health.
But I mean, what a crazy story.
That is a crazy story with... Yeah, you're right. If a fraction of that was true, that's crazy.
Yeah. So that was a wild ride. Yeah, this is David. You can go find him on the internet. He's around.
Hi, David.
What's up, boy?
Can you maybe like post that podcast episode you listened to like on our group?
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes too.
Because that would be really interesting to listen to.
You should listen to it. He also talks about like aliens, like other stuff. It's good. I liked it.
Alien talk.
Yeah.
Very interesting stuff, Abby. Good job.
Bingo. Should we do City of the Week?
Let's do it. And that goes to Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening, Arizona.
Hello. Thank you.
Shout out to you guys. We appreciate you.
Totally. So, what are things that you've been doing besides this episode?
Like, do I have any? I do have a documentary. I watched so many, but there was one that I found endlessly fascinating. Speaking of Mormons, called Lula Rich, and it's on Amazon if you haven't seen it. It's about the LuLaRoe craze. Like, I'm sure we all remember the LuLaRoe, the leggings.
Was part of it.
Those buttery soft leggings.
Still have mine.
Just talks about their whole empire, which is really weird and insane.
Yikes.
So if you want to deep dive into like a pyramid scheme, which is so culty, like it gets really culty and like really
pyramid schemes are like really bad and like kind of everywhere and
like somehow legal, like certain like in a certain capacity. I'm like, why is it legal in a certain capacity? Just stop. Like, cause like it just always seems to get exploited,
and it always goes for like the moms,
the
like
single, like, or not single, but like the stay-at-home moms,
who's just wanting to make extra cash,
trying to make a buck, and then they get lured into this like predatory situation,
and it's like you're bound to fail. It's like that. It sucks.
Sucky.
It sucks so hard.
So, yeah, I thought that was really fascinating. So
That's
watch
really interesting.
Yeah.
I put down, because you and I both have been really into, well, I think we mentioned this before on the podcast, but Radio Rental.
Radio Rental is such a good podcast.
It is our jam and a half. Go listen to it if you haven't already.
It gives me the biggest goosebumps.
And like you and I were talking about how like the stories have been like extra creepy, where we're like out loud like screaming, no, stop it, get out.
Why? Absolutely not. Like,
it's so good.
Yelling into space. Yeah, it's so, go listen. We're not being paid to say this. It's just we really like it.
No. It's Rainn Wilson from The Office. He plays a character called Terry Carnation.
Which is a great name
and character. Yes, it's a great voice, great character. And it's people telling their like really weird heebie-jeebie stories. And I love it.
Gosh, it's so good.
So good.
So fucking weird. Some of the stories are so weird. And they're just like the most normal people.
Yeah.
Usually. Yeah.
Oof, good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. Oh.
Are we going to do that review real quick?
Yeah. Do you have it pulled up? I don't.
No, but I can look up a past text message from you, I think, real fast. It was a cute little review. Oh, hello, Roscoe. You dreaming? Okay, so it was from KellyBelly0801, and they said, great podcast. Great job, girls. I enjoy every single episode. Keep them coming, please.
Thanks, Kelly Belly.
Thank you for such your encouraging, positive words. That's really sweet.
Yeah, we love when you guys do reviews and we will read them on the show. So go do that if you haven't done that yet. And with that, I'm going to say good up and good night.
Good up and good night.
We out. Okay, for my sources, I read the book Psychic Warrior by David Morehouse. I listened to the podcast Everything Imaginable, episode 303. I went to davidmorehouse.com and historycollection.com. Our music is by Broke for Free and Matt Edwards, and we are edited by Michael.
All right. Should I list our social medias?
Please do.
We have a lot of our things at Anxious and Afraid, the pod. So that's our handle for both of our Facebook page and group, along with our Instagram and Gmail.
We have a Twitter at AA the pod.
You can support us on patreon.com/anxious and afraid.
If you do that, you get some pretty nice perks. You get ad-free episodes that are released a whole day early, and you get a free sticker.
You can also support us for free if you can't do any of that by leaving a rate review. You subscribe to the show, tell your friends.
Yeah, we would appreciate all of it too right now.
Anxious and Afraid is partnered with the Oracle Network.
I'm Paige, the host of Reverie True Crime. I tell stories of helpless victims, vicious killers, predators watching their prey before they strike, survivors, petty crimes, people we think we know who do the unthinkable, and the dangers that lurk not only in the dead of night, but in plain sight and the light of day. Every once in a while, I'll also tell stories of the frightening paranormal, elusive cryptids, haunted locations, and conspiracies that may be silly or thought-provoking. You can listen to Reverie True Crime wherever you're listening to this podcast. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at Reverie Crime Pod, Facebook, Instagram, and even Tumblr at Reverie True Crime. Remember, stay safe, be aware of your surroundings at all times, and take care.